Welcome back. I have an extremely wonderful and expert guest with me, Christina Vilaboa-Abel, partner and founder of CAVA Law in South Florida. We were just talking about bankruptcies and how the individual with respect and compassion is dealt with through your firm. And I want to now go into shifting towards the business owner because, of course, you do specialize in business law, business litigation. So, what kind of legal issues are entrepreneurs and small business clients bringing to your firm right now?
Well, a lot of SBA loans that perhaps right after COVID, the small businesses made arrangements with the SBA to, have a reduced payment as they start going, and now those payment arrangements are coming to an end. So, a lot of businesses are looking to kind of restructure their budget to see, can they negotiate something else, or can they, afford the actual full amounts that are owed. A lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs are really starting to have to budget differently and more creatively.
And I can appreciate that. I mean, I'm a small business owner. Also, I used to run two different nonprofits. So, budgeting is something that you're always playing with. And I guess this segues right into this. So, what's one common legal mistake you see these business owners, investors, or landlords make before they come to you?
Oof. I don't think we have enough time for this, but I'll name one of the biggest. One of
Okay.
the biggest, a lot of small business owners, people want to start their business and are excited and they want to jump in. And people with an entrepreneurial spirit, they just want to jump in. And one thing I always tell individuals who are maybe in their first or second year of starting off a company or a solo venture is, remember, your company is not you. You are not your company. You know, do not mix your personal funds with your corporate funds. Always, 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 if you start off, get a good accountant, a good CPA that does good bookkeeping. Make sure, even better, actually, I tell them, have your accounts for your company in one bank and your personal accounts in another. Do not mix, because in the event that you need professional help, either from an attorney, maybe a more specialized CPA or tax planner, if you have all these commingled, you know, accounts and you can't tell what the corporate funds and what the personal funds are, it is not only going to be more complicated, because it just will be, but the complexity will make everything more expensive down the line. And what small business owner wants to pay something more expensive at a time when they're looking for solutions to problems?
And it does, it makes, but also it pierces the veil that the corporation is
Yeah.
ultimately liable. And now your personal accounts or assets and investments can now be attached as potential assets for rewards. And,
Yes.
and that is so important because it's true. I know many people who will like they're fun, they want to start business. They're proactive, they got that burning desire and they're using their personal credit cards and commingling as far as even what funds are whose. So that is such an important aspect.
Yes, absolutely. And even, I get so many business owners that, maybe things go terribly wrong and they just say, Christina, I want to give up. That's it. Can we just put the company into bankruptcy? I'm like, okay, well, the one chapter of bankruptcy that closes down the company and tries to do away with all liabilities is chapter 7, the corporate side. Even then, if you did not manage your company in a way that kept things separately and, was very, very by the book, a bankruptcy trustee trying to wind down a company in Chapter 7 is going to really audit that company to the end. And if that trustee thinks that the owner, even if it was a small one person owned company, perhaps took a distribution they shouldn't have in the previous year instead of paying certain creditors or anything, all they will get consequences, at least within that bankruptcy. So, something like that cannot be taken informally. You have to keep that corporate veil. up and steady.
It's, and I was going to ask this, so it's perfect. In order to protect your client's assets, like the client wants to protect their assets before the crisis hits, what are one,
Mhm.
two legal tools you recommend for your clients who want to safeguard their property or business ahead of time? So, like, just be preventative in that thinking.
Yes, that is actually, yes, I want everybody to be preventative in every which way. I don't want people coming to, a legal office right when everything just goes downhill. I think at least financially, when you're looking at asset protection ahead of time, is really familiarizing oneself with the protections their particular state gives, understanding really well what those protections are. For example, in Florida, where we practice, it's, $1,000 worth of equity of personal property. You have your homestead protection. If you don't have a homestead and you rent, you get $4,000 of extra personal property protection on equity of personal property, things like that. And on top of that, really finding a really good financial advisor that will help over time strategize a way to maybe open certain retirement accounts, insurance accounts, to really be able to understand that if things were to go downhill, it'd be an easy shift to be able to take things that perhaps grew equity over time and you didn't once have to protect, but then you have the tools to protect them very quickly if you have to, you know? Um, that is indispensable if you have any sort of asset whatsoever. People are shocked that a credit card company that sues you, let's say in the year 2000, has until almost 2 decades later to come after you if they have a judgment and attached to maybe something valuable you bought in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
you know assets with value need to be protected from the outset.
And it's interesting because I actually came across that in a case. I had a probate, and unbeknownst to the children, the father had a judgment, and it was 18 years before, and they were able to successfully get a lien and attach it to a rental property or an investment property.
Yes, yes, absolutely,
and
absolutely. And
and nobody had a clue because it was 18 years ago. I mean,
right,
it's but you don't think of that. You're like, okay. And fortunately, here in Florida, we do have very strong homestead protections. What that means is your primary residence, your homestead, has, I think, at least seven constitutional protections from that. But it's
yes,
something to look into.
yes. And that, Alina, one time I had a client that bought a property with the intention of making it homestead, but construction made it longer for him and his wife to be able to move in. So there, an argument came up later with a creditor. Was it homestead protected if the intention was there, but they didn't actually live there for 6 months? So it's a lot, to really look into to make sure one is protected. A good attorney on one side is very important.
Well, and I absolutely agree, especially when you're planning, especially when you're dealing with businesses, whether you are a seasoned business owner, anytime you want to open it is so important and necessary, I truly believe, to go to a lawyer such as Christina, as you and your partner and your law team, because you're able to structure and work with other professionals and bring them in to ensure your client's success and growth in the future. And especially in the times that we're living in, where politics and policy are affecting every layer of economic life. And
Yes,
it's not just about the tariffs. I mean, we're seeing it now um, with like our real estate market, which is now starting to maybe stabilize a bit, but then we're still reeling from all the insurance hikes, things of that nature. So when we're looking at our current economic situation, as especially here in Florida, from property rights to tax burdens to regulation, how do you help your clients stay focused amid all of this noise that we're hearing?
hmm. I tell them to focus on their own numbers. One thing that we try to offer our clients after, you know whether it's an insolvency or some intense financial litigation, is all right, let's sit down and really budget. Let's budget not just for this year, but let's project out to next year. Think about what's going on and how that affects you, and plan, because staying a few steps ahead is always the right key and the right strategy to be able to surpass any difficulty, whether that's due to policy or what have you. None of us are immune, and planning is key. So you can't bury your head in the sand.
And that's so true. And I think that's some people feel like if you ignore the problem or ignore what is out in the thing, it will never come forward. And that's when all heck breaks loose.
Yeah.
So if you could give one message of hope or one call to action for people watching who feel buried in legal or financial stress right now, what would that be?
One call to action is put pen to paper. Put pen to paper. One good thing about today's day and age is that we're also connected. And through that connection, we have the tools to find the right specialists that we need, whatever that may be. And think ahead and make yourself a folder. Okay, if I ever needed this, these are the people I might go to. If I ever needed this, these are the people I might go to. Always preparation. Preparation is really what sets the successful person apart from the less successful.
And Christina, where can people learn more about you, CAVA Law, and how can they reach you?
Absolutely. Well, CAVA Law is my firm. We're here down in South Florida. Our website is www.cava.law. Follow me on Instagram. I'm Abogada Christy. I'd love for you to follow me and comment and tag back. And yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're starting to build our TikTok. We're trying to get out there and really modernize.
I love that. Okay, I am one of those. I got onto TikTok and it's so addicting, but I love it.
Yeah.
And it's such a good tool. I actually been following some other attorneys that provide such excellent advice or, just knowledge. And I think knowledge is power. Christina, thank you for joining me and sharing such valuable insight for our audience, not just into the law, but how people can reclaim control during some of life's toughest moments and retaining their composure and respectability. And to
Absolutely.
and to all of you watching, thank you for being part of another episode of We the People. Your voice, your freedom, and your future matter. Love what you're watching. Catch this episode of We the People and every Now Media TV show live on demand or on demand anytime. Just download the free Now Media TV app on Roku and get instant access to all our bilingual content in English and Spanish. I'm Eileena Gonzalez Dockery. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, stay informed, stay courageous, and stay grounded in truth and keep that common sense in the forefront. This is We the People.